I was going to record this on Saturday, which seems like it would have been the better idea, because I have the hiccups tonight. But you know what? It's March 31st at like 1:30 a.m. I have no other time I can record this. I'm trying to get this posted today before the end of the month. So you're gonna have to deal with the hiccups. I'm sorry. I don't know what to do about it. I've tried. I can't get them to go away. This is like the third time I've had hiccups in the past like 5 hours. It's more annoying for me than it is for you. Okay, because it hurts. Like, it hurts so bad. I can't do this. Anyway. Hey, hi. How are you this lovely Monday morning? I'm doing something a little different. A little different. You have to stick with me. I was going to do, I don't know if this will work. Word. I don't know how PowerPoint works. I actually don't use Microsoft Office on a day-to-day basis. So, okay. I was going to do another book review. I was going to review Something Wicked This Way Comes by Ray Bradbury because I really like Ray Bradbury. I really liked that book. And I will be honest, I just didn't read it. Just didn't. I read the book my freshman year of high school, my first semester. So before I even read Inheritance Games. And I liked it. And so I wanted to read it because I wanted it to be like, oh, this channel isn't just a bad book channel. The hiccups are going to get so annoying. I'm so sorry. It's not just a bad book channel, was my goal. But I then just didn't read it. I didn't go through it to take my notes and make new whatever. But instead what happened, I forgot I added a transition. I was scrolling on Instagram. I'll get into the story in a bit, but have you ever been scrolling on Instagram and you realized, oh, people don't know how to talk anymore? Well, me too. And that's why I've created Internet, more like Internot. Instagram users can't spell, and it makes me sad. You will notice there was also Minecraft in the back. Roblox, not Minecraft. Oh my god, I'm on a roll. There was Roblox in the background. Because Roblox also can't spell, but they're children, so, like, you know, they kind of get a pass. But, right, Instagram users, social media users in general, cannot spell. And this is what I call the maternal dilemma, which you probably can't even see this, because it's probably really oversaturated and overbright, but it is what it is. There was this video that I'm gonna play. I don't know if you can see it or not. That I'm gonna play. And I sent this video to my mother, because she sends me cat videos. I figured I'd send her a cat video. I don't know what that box is. I think that was an emoji. Anyway, I was also, like, okay, the wizard imagery. Okay. I thought that would be really funny because I was like, oh my god, they're waving their hands around like wizards, like like the wizard cat meme. So that's what I did, and so I put wizards in the background, and I was going to find an image of Harry Potter with his wand and like flying on the broomstick and like doing whatever, but I found this image of Draco Malfoy, and I couldn't pass it up, and so I drew cat ears on it, and I wrote meow. Anyway, I sent that video to my mother, and her response was this. She said, "Sissies. Lol." Which, you may notice something here, right? You see that? That is not correct. So that brings me to the point of my argument. And I call it, that's me, DDTC. I call it the American Literacy Epidemic. AKA, people don't know how to spell or like speak anymore. People don't know English. I'll be so for real. I was looking over my slides. I don't remember what anecdote means. I have a point. I did find this meme though. It says, "You may be thinking, geez, somebody help. That guy is drowning. Fear not. He uses his gills to breath underwater." I added that because breath is not the term they meant to use. They meant to use the word breathe, which I cannot do right now, which is, it ends with an E. It's a completely different spelling. Not complete, you get what I mean, right? Different spelling. But people don't know the difference between words. And as a, kind of English person, this is a big pet peeve of mine. I hate it when people don't know words. And it's especially annoying when you have native English speakers being like, oh, I hate English. I cannot speak English to save my life. Dude, you're in the US. That's your only language. If I met, a person in the US, like French Canadian maybe, that traveled to the US and they're like, I speak French and English, I hate English. Okay, whatever, be my guest. I mean, I don't know why you'd like French more, but go off, king. I guess they don't like their kings. Go off. But here's the deal, right? I don't understand what someone who speaks only one language will diss on the language that they speak, and they'll be like super proud of the fact that they cannot speak their language. Girl, you should know how to do that. It's your only language, right? And this is a common trend, is that people don't know the difference between their homophones or their homograms, right? I saw this video on Instagram not that long ago, because I only have Instagram outside of YouTube. I saw this video on Instagram not that long ago where it was a English teacher that said, conservative English teacher here, you're not teaching our kids pronouns. You're teaching them homophones. You're blatantly incorrect. You're an English teacher and you don't know the grammatical functions within your language. There, and there, yes, they are homophones. You're so correct. You're so right. But here's the thing, right? Homophones are not equal to pronouns. He, she, I, me, yours, you, us, ours, it. These are all pronouns. If you do not know grammatical functions in your own language, oh my god, I'm gonna die. If you don't know grammatic functions within your language, then why are you teaching children this language, right? You're telling kids, oh, let's learn our homophones. He, him. He, him, his. She, they, theirs. Those are not homophones. There, and there, yes. Two, yes. Hour and hour, depending on the accent. Yes, those are all homophones. But pronouns are not homophones. They are not equivalent. Some pronouns have homophones. Most of them actually don't. And that's what the problem is in reality, right? People nowadays do not know grammatic functions of their language. And it is to the detriment of the people. And so I want to talk about Finland. I'm going to talk about Finland so briefly, right? Because this isn't entirely the point that I'm trying to get to. It's just, I was curious, right, about the rates in countries other than the US, considering that the US is kind of notorious for not having the best education system. Which, it didn't fail me, but that is likely because I was one of the few kids that paid attention, right? It's not bad if you're interested in school, but if you're not, the education system really doesn't benefit any kind of long-term understanding. So let's talk about Finland. Finland has a better education system than the US. If you were to look it up online, it'll say Finland, South Korea, and Singapore. I was gonna look at all three, and then I got lazy. You can tell by the slides when I got lazy, because Finland was the last one I made, and then I added pictures on the rest of them make them look like I did something. So Finland has one of the best education systems, and as such, they have high literacy rates. What's literacy? Literacy is basically just being able to read and write. Right? Literacy is being able to understand how sounds are made and what sounds look like on paper. Right? And then they had average to above average comprehension. Excuse me. Oh my god. I felt my soul come out with that one. They have average to above average comprehension rates, which, would make sense if they have a better education system, but what surprised me is that they have a better education system, but the gap isn't as big as I thought it would be. I can link the link in the description. I skimmed over the article, but it showed enough that it's not that significant of a difference, where the education system is better, but it's only a few points on average higher in comprehension. And that was something that was really interesting to me. Can I analyze that? No. I don't live in Finland. That was just something I wanted to add. So I wrote us, but that's supposed to say US, in case you didn't get the hint by now. That's where I live. I found this on Instagram. It says, how does shit work? And it's the word onion, but it's spelled UNYUN. I'm just so out of breath. The US, right? It's a common joke in media where, Americans are stupid, Americans, they don't know how to spell, blah, 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 the American education system has failed. That's neither here nor there. We're not getting into that. The point that I'm trying to get into right now, though, is I live in the US, and so whenever there is an issue with education or people being smart, I see it. And there's a big issue. When people in their middle ages don't know the difference between a possessive and a plural, right? That's the issue. It's a problem, especially in politics, because you see a lot of the time that one party will try to call the other stupid, saying, your candidates are really bad at speaking, or your candidates are, what's the word they used for Joe Biden? Your candidates are, incoherent, right? And yet, they don't know their possessives and their plurals. They don't know basic grammatical functions. You cannot get mad at the other side for being bad at speaking if you do not know basic English, right? And this is something that is taught in elementary school, right? You're taught, I said that really weirdly, this is something that's taught in elementary school. When you're little, you are taught the difference between IES and apostrophe S. And the one thing that really annoys me, really ticks me off, is I'm a university student. And the amount of times I've seen something prepared by a professor that has a singular noun ending in S that's just an apostrophe. If you're adding a possessive and it's like the name Davis or something, it's Davis's. Right? It's really annoying to me. And yet, I saw something earlier saying Rosa Parks with an apostrophe instead of Rosa Parks's. Right? It's something that's a little frustrating to me when people don't know basic grammatical functions that they are taught in elementary school, right? Apostrophe and apostrophe S are two different functions. One is singular, one is plural. It doesn't matter if the singular ends with an S. It's still apostrophe S. If you're talking about something that conjugates weird, right? So sheep isn't a good example because sheep is always sheep. Let's say octopus, right? Octopus conjugates to the plural octopi. If you're to talk about a pod of octopies, thing, right? A pot of octopi's cave. I don't know if octopus live in caves. I'm not a marine biologist, but that's how that would conjugate, right? That's when you would have the apostrophe S. It has nothing to do with singular nouns. It has everything to do with plural nouns ending in an S. If it's a plural noun ending in an S, it's apostrophe S. If it's a singular noun, it doesn't matter what it ends in. It's always just apostrophe S, right? I said that backwards, but you get what I mean, right? You understand. I can't really think right now. I have the hiccups. It kind of takes over like half of my brain. Have you seen that meme where it's like the French dude where he's missing 90% of his brain? That feels like me right now. Anyway, these are things I found on Roblox. It's someone that says, I'm stuggling, and then another... I really like that one. And then there's another person that says, what time do you have to go? And then I wrote at the top, correlation, not causation. I kind of vaguely know where I was going to go with this. The problem is that literacy and comprehension don't just involve, like, being able to read a book, right? Which, granted, they do, right? But it involves scientific literacy, and we're going to get into more of what that means in the next slide, scientific and media literacy specifically, but what I'm talking about in this one is correlation and causation. It's being able to see a pattern and realize, oh, well, maybe this isn't related, right? Excuse me. It's like people saying stats, right? Let's say there's a correlation between people under the age of 18 and owning dune buggies, right? You might say, oh, because you're not 18, you own a dune buggy. That's an example of correlation does not equal causation, right? Just because the stats, that's the difference between stats and actual correlation, right? If you have, I'm so sorry. Oh, should I do ASMR? I cannot do ASMR right now. If I was to show you this, right, and say correlation where, and you say, oh, correlation is people under the age of 18 own dune buggies. This is blatantly not true, because while those might be high, there are probably a lot of confounding variables. Say their family is rich. Let's say all of the people studied were rich families. Then all of a sudden, maybe all of their kids that are like 16 own dune buggies. But if you say under the age of 18, it makes it sound like every minor owns a dune buggy. Well, that might not be true, right? A lot of literacy and comprehension is being able to see variables that might conflict with the data and what it represents. And that is something that is really lacking in especially the political sphere nowadays. It's saying, oh, if you are a part of this demographic, then you are more likely to do this because whatever. Like, say, with any of it, really, it's like when people say, like, oh, if you're a man, you're more likely to kill yourself. That is a true statistic. But it is not being a man that causes suicide. That's what people tend to think. It's not actually being a man that causes suicide. It's the external and societal factors that cause men to end up neglecting their own mental health and putting themselves in places of peril, right? That's the point of those statistics. But people tend to see a statistic like that and they think that it means, oh, being a man will make you commit suicide, or being in a minority group will make you commit suicide, or being in whatever will make you do this. If you are X and Y happens, it's because of X. Where that is not true. There are many different factors that are related, and this goes into our scientific and media literacy. I found this on Google, and it says, what does NaCl mean on my water softener? NaCl is salt. That is something you learn in probably 7th grade. At least for the American system, you learn that around junior high. It's not complicated. It's common knowledge to know that sodium chloride is salt. NaCl is salt. It's your table salt. That is something that you normally know. But the fact that people don't know this, and so they have to look up on Google what NaCl is, blows my mind. And I understand some people aren't scientifically savvy, right? But this goes into scientific and media literacy. It's being able to understand science and understand that some words in science might not be the same as your vernacular, right? Your common speak, colloquialisms, right? Media literacy. What's an example of media literacy? Let's say you're on Instagram Reels, because again, that's the only social media I have outside of YouTube, and YouTube barely even counts. Let's say you're on Instagram Reels and someone says, I have the perfect recipe for pecan pie. And you go, is there a substitute for pecan? I'm allergic to tree nuts. No, there isn't. It's a pecan pie. And you're sitting here being like, oh, can I substitute the pecan? No, that's like the key ingredient, I fear, right? Media literacy is being able to understand if something is applicable to you. But what's another example of media literacy? Media literacy would like being able to go to, I don't know, the show Big Fish, right? And listen to, I think her name is Sandra. I don't remember. I think it's Sandra. Sandra Bloom. I think that's her name. It'd be like going to Big Fish and listening to Sandra talking about Edward in her ballad, I Don't Need a Roof, and where she's saying, all I need is you and you forever. All I feel is true and absolute. And hearing those lyrics, and later turning around and going, I don't know what the point of that ballad was. Like, it really wasn't that emotional. Like, he is ready to die, and she's just telling him that you can die, I'll be okay. That's not actually the point of the song, and if you paid any attention whatsoever, you would hear with the last lyric being, stay with me. She says it twice. She says, stay with me, stay with me. The point of the song is not that she, will be okay without her husband. Because if you don't know Big Fish, which you probably do, because this, again, is likely going to just be my close friends list. Big Fish, her husband dies of cancer. She's singing this ballad as he's telling her, oh, don't worry, after I die, like, the roof will still be fine, you'll be all right. After I die, you'll be all right. And she's saying, I won't be all right because you won't be here, right? She's saying, I don't care about the roof. I want you to be here. I don't care if the roof exists. The roof could crash and burn. I just need you. That's the point of this ballad. It's her starting to grieve her husband as he is dying from cancer. And so to hear that and turn around and go, that ballad was so pointless, because she's telling him that she'll be she's comforting him, telling him she's going to be okay after he dies when he already knows. That's the complete opposite. And that's what media literacy is. Media literacy isn't being able to see something and go, oh, those words make sense. It's being able to understand the context in which words are being said. And a lot of media literacy and comprehension even plays a role in your day-to-day speech, right? Your socialization with other people. It's important that you can understand what the context of words mean, because if you don't, then you're not going to have good social interaction. If you can't see between the lines and understand what people are saying outside of the words that they are using, then you're not going to be able to make meaningful relationships or connections in the future. And this is something that is starting to prove to be a detriment to people in especially the modern age with social media. And the way that social media tries to simplify social interaction. Oh, you just have to post. You don't even have to talk to someone. You can just post something on your little note on Instagram and someone can like it and bam, you had your social interaction for the day. They maintained their friendship with you by telling you, yep, I saw your note. That is not how social interaction works in the real world or in business. You have to be able to understand stuff more in detail than that. And it goes into science. It goes into every facet of life, being able to understand. And that's part of why modern literature is starting to become so bad, is because TikTok is now starting to focus more on sex. And they don't care about nuance. They just want to write a little erotica and call it a day, which, if that's what you want to do, fine, be my guest. That's not what I want to read for. I want to actually read because it's interesting. I'm not reading to watch shitty dialogue and then watch two people get at it with occasionally a normal scene in between. Like, and that's what modern TikTok and romance is starting to become. And also, that's what a lot of YA is starting to become. YA is young adult. It's not supposed to be like, oh, this sexy little... No, it's supposed to be for teenagers. But people don't know that because they can't understand what young adult means. There are two different genres. There is young adult and there is new adult. I write personally in new adult. I don't like to write like the... But you get what I mean, right? There is new adult and young adult. New adult has more of the adult themes. Young adult is for teenagers. Young adult is like in between... Young adult is Twilight. You know how Twilight has the like closed door scenes? It's Twilight. And Twilight also was Mormon, so that would partially explain it. But young adult is Twilight. There are different grades, basically, for literature. There's mainly, like as like big categories, there's middle grade, young adult, and new adult. And then there are obviously some in between. And then there's, adult fiction, which is where most of book talk should be, but for some reason is in YA because teenagers. It's this weird thing where people don't understand what words mean. They see words on a page and they go, oh, I've seen that word before. And then they ignore what it's supposed to entail, right? They will think that a book is good because it has the tropes they want, but they won't actually analyze the context and understand what makes a book. That was part of what annoyed me with the Inheritance games, was that people were raving about it. I had high standards for that book. I had high standards for that book because I was expecting it to be really good, and I do like Enemies to Lovers. It's a little guilty pleasure of mine. But the problem was, it was not very, in my opinion, technically sound, right? And another problem that I always run into is with literature, and especially classic literature. We're talking Shakespeare classic. And this is something that I will rant about until the day that I die. But Romeo and Juliet. Not a love story. It was a satire. Romeo and Juliet was not supposed to be taken seriously. Shakespeare wrote that because he was like, isn't this so stupid, guys? Aren't teenagers so stupid and horny? That's what he was saying. And then people went, oh my god, it's such a great love story. Romeo was in love with a girl at the beginning of the book. And then all of a sudden, well, I guess it's a play, but you get what I mean, right? All of a sudden, he is in love with Juliet. No, he's not. He thought Rosalind was hot, and then swore herself to chastity, and then Romeo went, that's like, she's like such a prick for that. Like, I want to have sex with her. And like, it's really mean of her to swear herself to chastity because then she'll never procreate. Because I totally want to procreate, and that's the, like, I would totally... You get what I'm saying? And then Romeo goes to this party that he's not supposed to be at. He knows he's not supposed to be at because it's his family's rivals, but he goes anyway. And he sees Juliet, and all of a sudden, his love for Rosalind, gone. In an instant. It's just done. And he's like, I love Juliet. And then they kill themselves. It's literally the plot. And actually, fun fact, I didn't even know this because I hadn't even seen Twilight or read Twilight in its entirety. If you watch, I think it's the second Twilight movie, the one where Edward tries to, like, seppuku, that entire plot is literally just Romeo and Juliet. But bad. What made Romeo and Juliet good was that it was a satire. It was supposed to be ridiculous. But people saw it and they were like, oh, this is the greatest love story of all time. No, it is not. It is not. It's never been a good love story. It never will be a good love story. It's a satire. It wasn't meant to be taken seriously. And that's an example of media literacy. It's being able to understand what the themes of the text you are reading are supposed to be. And so, that's what I am really concerned with, is that people don't understand words anymore. And that's a problem. When you're in school and you're in especially high school in the US, a lot of your English classes are just comprehension based. You've learned most of the English you've needed to learn, right? You know all of your your prefixes, your roots, you know all of your, participles and your prepositions, you know all of the basic grammatical functions. These are all taught to you. Advanced English is taught to you by 8th grade. And so when you get to 9th through 12th grade, your high school years, right, you should know English like the back of your hand. And yet people still don't. And I will see people writing books where it's just not good and I don't understand it. And they get published. Next month, I'm going to read Hurricane Wars. It looked interesting. I bought it at Barnes & Noble because I was like, ooh, it has enemies to lovers, it says. I'm very interested in that. But I did not know it would be a Reylo book. If you don't know what Reylo is a ship name in the Star Wars fandom. And I'll get into that at the end of April. But I did not know it would be a Reylo book. And then it ended up being a Reylo book, apparently. I don't know. I haven't read it yet. But, I'm concerned now. I don't know if I'm going to like it. But, right, that's an example of media literacy. Is I know that I'm not into Star Wars. I don't think this book's going to be for me. It is hard to be incredibly mad about it. You have to give people grace, right? And a lot of this is just me yapping. But it is deeply concerning to me that there will be people who only speak English that will say, oh, I'm really bad at English, especially people within the sciences. If anyone needs to be able to speak English well, it's people in the sciences, because there's no way the average folk is going to understand you unless you can speak good English or whatever your native tongue is. But I live in America. The predominant and usually only language is English. And so to hear people who aren't one of the Spanish speakers, who only know English, saying, I don't even know English. I'm so bad at English, especially the ones in science, where they'll need to be able to use English to communicate their findings to people who don't understand science. That is a problem. It is a problem if you have scientists that don't know how to communicate. Communication is so important. It's part of what makes us human. It's what separates us from other species. It is crucial that you know how to speak your language. So why are we so proud that we can't? It was like when I was in choir. Most of the choir did not know how to read sheet music. They didn't know the first thing about sheet music. And so when it came to auditions, because they were musically illiterate, no one was able to get in for auditions when there was sight reading, right? It is crucial that you know every facet of the thing you are trying to utilize. If you are trying to sing, you better know how to read. And the people that got in, often it was the people that could read. The one person that got in was one of the people who has known how to read music for the longest amount of time. If you are to be creating digital art, you need to first know how to turn on the iPad or your little drawing tablet. You need to know how to use the technology in order to create what you want, the desired effect, right? If you want to paint, you need to know how to hold a paintbrush, and that is what language is. It is so much more than just sounds that people make. It is our way of communicating. It is a unique facet of the human experience. Other animals have ways of communicating, but they're not nearly as complex as the human language. Any human language, right? To be proud of not being able to understand English fully or being able to speak it fully is like being proud of being a painter who has never seen a paintbrush. It's upsetting. You need to be able to understand this, and it's been very frustrating, especially since it's one of those things where once you realize it, you see it in every facet of your life. Every time you go on social media, you will see at least one word spelt wrong within a minute. Like, guaranteed to you, you will. Part of that, you could argue, could be AI captioning, whatever. But if you go into any comment section, you will find misspelled words. You will see people saying breath instead of breathe. You will see people confusing their theirs. You will see people confusing their twos. You will see every spelling error, even some that you could have never imagined. That's not good. And it's frustrating too, because I do love linguistics. As such a linguist, it is frustrating to me when people seem to take English less seriously, because people say, oh, English is a dumb language. I mean, any language is dumb if you define it poorly enough, right? Any language can be beautiful and any language can be awful, right? French is a lovely example of that. If you've ever heard a native French person speaking, it's either super aggressive and it feels like they're gonna murder you, or it's like, oh my god, it's such a pretty language. No wonder it's a love language, right? But French is probably one of the dumbest languages I've ever seen, right? Because I'm defining it on terms of an English perspective. It is very different from English, and so I think it's kind of stupid. I don't think it's all that stupid. I do love French. I love any language. I love studying languages. But, right, the point is, if you don't understand a language, especially the one that you speak natively and the one that you might be, like, if you are monolingual and you cannot speak that language, if you are monolingual and you always are like, oh, that language is so stupid, girl, what other language are you liking better? You haven't picked a different one, so just suck it up at this point. Like, I don't know what to tell you. It's frustrating. Do you understand why it's frustrating? It's frustrating because I feel like English also gets a really bad rap. Like, English can be such a beautiful language. Every language has the capacity to be beautiful. If you think a language is ugly, it's because your thinking is too confined. Any language has the capacity to be a gorgeous language. If you've ever read any of Ray Bradbury's work, he is an amazing author. I would suggest, if you are interested, he has a short story. It's called There Will Come Soft Rains. It's part of his novel, The Martian Chronicles. It's one of the editions. But he includes the poem There Will Come Soft Rains. It's a short story inspired off of a poem written by a different person, right? He was written by a poet. And the poem itself is gorgeous. And the short story is so phenomenally written, right? It's brilliant. Like, English can be this beautiful language if you just cared enough to pay attention, right? And that's why it's frustrating to me, is because people who need to know it the most, the scientists, especially the scientists, the people who need to be able to interpret data to an audience that doesn't understand, they think that because they're scientists, they don't need English. That is not true. You need to be able to speak. If you are in a profession that is more difficult, if you are an engineer, if you are a biologist, if you're a chemist, if you're a physicist, you need to be better at speaking than a novelist. Because a novelist only needs to interpret things that every human understands. A novelist just needs to interpret what love feels like. Everyone's felt love before. Not everyone, because, but like, you get the point, right? Everyone has felt emotion. But not everyone has understood biology. Not everyone has been able to see cellular respiration occurring inside the mitochondria and understand what is happening. And the thing is, right, that one sentence, People probably got lost on what that means. Cellular aspiration, what is that? And people don't understand, right? Metabolism, it's not about your food. Metabolism is related to food, but it's not solely about what you eat and how fast you process it, right? Metabolism is so much more complex than that. But because people don't have scientific literacy, scientific comprehension, they will dumb down concepts, and that is fine. But a scientist needs to be able to understand this and interpret data properly. And this is something that I've noticed is not happening anymore. It's not happening to the extent that it used to, because people are starting to be like, oh, well, it's kind of dumb. I don't really need to speak English. You need to. I don't know what this disillusionment with language is coming from. I don't know why all of a sudden people think that they are above linguistics and above communication. And it's especially prominent in the modern age due to social media. People are starting to not be able to even keep up with basic lines of communication. They think that sending someone an Instagram reel every once in a while is enough to maintain a friendship, right? They think that responding to someone's story is enough to maintain a friendship, and that's not the case, right? It's so weird to me. It's so weird to me that people are so insistent that they don't need to be able to speak English well. You do, right? Like, and I guess that's what this video is about. It's a lot of me ranting, and I don't know, maybe I'll actually do research and look into causes and effects and do whatever, but I just kind of wanted to talk on this because I've been very frustrated recently, especially seeing that the people who critique others for not being able to speak are just as guilty of not knowing the language, right? People who are deeply entrenched in politics are attacking other parties for sounding stupid, but they sound even dumber because they don't know the difference between different grammatical functions. They don't know the difference between, and I'm obviously, speaking in broad terms. I'm not talking about one specific person here, because it might sound like no, right? But it's common that you will see people on either side of the political spectrum saying that the other side is stupid and then using incorrect grammar. It's one of those things where if you're going to be hypocritical, you can't say anything. You can't say that the other party is less intelligent because they can't speak if you yourself don't know basic grammar. If you cannot speak at a basic high school level, and that's part of the issue, the reading comprehension in the US is a junior high level. It is the level of a 12 to 13-year-old. The average adult in the US cannot comprehend anything more complex than the 7th to 8th grade level. A grown adult, nothing more complex than 12 to 13 years old. That's a problem. That is a massive problem in the world, where doctors need to be able to dumb down their language to a 12-year-old to speak to someone who's 50, 60, 70 years old. That is where the problem lies. And there are a lot of factors involved in this, obviously. It's not just education. It's a lot of it to do with possible religious factors. There are some religious groups that take their children out of school early, or even some people who just don't like school. It wasn't for them, they drop out. People who don't go to college because of maybe financial standpoints. But it is often that people in more marginalized groups like poverty or religion happen to be less educated in that sense. They happen to not have the same level of comprehension. So, in reality, what does it lead to? You can dumb it down to possible systemic aggression. Oppression is the word I meant. Systemic oppression, right? Different marginalized religious groups, different, class levels, different monetary gain. These are all factors in education and therefore factors in comprehension. If you're not wealthy enough to go to a charter school, you might not be wealthy enough to get a better education, right? Public schools in the US aren't very good. They're not good. And I don't know how much I can talk on that because I did go to a charter school. It wasn't like a bougie whatever. It was like they just built it. It wasn't like you had to pay extra. It's not like it was like a boarding school. But it was probably a better education than most people. And it was also a uniform school. I did not like that part. I was actually funny because I was like, when I graduated, I was like, finally, I don't have to tuck my shirt in. And then I still tuck my shirt in. It just feels weird not to. It feels weird not to. It feels like it looks weird. You know what I mean? Anyway, that's not the point. The point is, right, if you don't have resources, you're not going to be able to improve. It's not the education system that's the issue. It's the economy. All of this can be boiled down. I'm pretty sure the next slide is just my credits, so I'm just leaving it on this one because there are like 7 links on that, and I only used one of them. So I'm just going to add that one link, and we'll be good to go. But, right, this can be dumbed down to economics. A society. We live in a society. It is more likely that people in worse economic standpoints are going to be less educated, and therefore they are going to have lower comprehension, lower literacy, right? Back in the day, health was a big factor, tuberculosis especially. This was in the 30s. This was around wartime, and tuberculosis. Big epidemic at that time, right? Tuberculosis goes around, and we're also talking World War I, World War II. When you're in a period of economic stress, like disease and war, famine, whatever, oftentimes education kind of goes to the wayside. You're not going to pay attention to it. And so that can be a detriment. My grandmother ended up illiterate because she got sick as a child. She was in the hospital. They were just trying to pass her through school, right? And so it is stuff like this that determines. And again, correlation isn't causation, but it is concerning to me that it seems that the literacy and the comprehension rates of the world are going down, because that is usually indicative of economic stress. I'm no politician. I'm just a biology major. But what concerns me is not that people don't know English. I'm aware that most countries don't even speak English, but what concerns me isn't that people don't know their language. It's that usually when people don't know their language, it's because the economy isn't as good. As we're seeing a decline, what is a possible cause? The country also going to shit. I'm not concerned about people not being able to speak. I'm concerned about the state of the country. The State of the Union. Give me State of the Union address. I'm concerned about the state of the country. Right? And so we see this trend, and we don't do anything about it. And it continues to get worse. And we're not going to acknowledge it. You see why that could be a problem? Are you picking up what I'm putting down? That's another example of literacy. If I can say that, and you can immediately understand instead of me having to go into more detail talking about it. It's not inherently that people can't speak. That's the problem. It's that usually the reasons are not good. It is an epidemic. It's going around. It's a problem because this usually means that there is something bad happening in the country. I think inevitably we'll be fine. I am an optimist. I will hold out. At the end of the day, whatever happens will happen. Right? We can't do anything about it. That's kind of a pessimistic way to think about it. But it's kind of true. We're not the ones in power. We can't do much. However, what I can say is I've seen trends. Eventually things will get better again. And I guess I'm just curious to see that if things get better, if people will be able to talk and actually understand English and know what the difference between a homophone and a pronoun is, because that really ticked me off. Like, why are you saying that you're an English teacher and you don't know the difference between these two? But anyway, I guess that's my little tangent, my little rant. There were probably things that I missed. I didn't script this, if it's not apparent. I don't plan on scripting any of these things. Yeah, anyway, I'm gonna go to bed because it's probably late. I don't know how long I've been recording. It's just gonna be my stream of consciousness. I hope you enjoy. I was gonna say I will talk to you later, but I guess I won't be talking to you. I will talk at you later. Oh, the button's up here. Okay. I don't know if this is going to turn it off, so that will be really embarrassing. Anyway, I will talk at you later. And by later, I mean a month. In a month. And I'll be out of school by then. That's going to be so fun.